All right. Hello, everyone. It's so amazing to be here. Thank you for coming. Today, I want to talk about the waterways, the opportunities they bring, and how they make us feel, and why they're the secret sauce for creating more sustainable and living cities, where people get around more efficiently while reconnecting with each other and with nature. Like my current hometown, Oslo, most of the cities are located on the water. Waterfronts are iconic features of cities. Just take a look at the screensaver on your computer or TV. The waterways feature prominently in most cities. This is Amsterdam, where I lived for 5 years. Bergen, New York, London, Cairo, Stockholm, Lagos, Osaka, Dar es Salaam. It is, of course, no coincidence that cities are located on water. Ever since humans started exploring the planet, we have followed the waterways. Crossing oceans brought new discoveries. Following rivers opened new horizons. The Viking ships on display in the Norwegian Viking Ship Museum in Oslo are more than 1,000 years old. But it goes way further back than that. This rock carving outside Oslo is more than 3,500 years old. Created in the Bronze Age, it shows a large vessel with which archaeologists believe were used to travel across Europe. But there's more to waterways than transport. Waterfronts are also perfect venues for relaxation and recreation. Being next to water has clear health benefits. We instinctively know this to be true, but there's no scientific proof. People living on the coast are generally happier and healthier than people living inland. Just think how you seek out the waterfront when you visit new places. Human beings are attracted to the water. So let's take a deeper look at how we can create more livable and sustainable cities by reconsidering our relationship with the waterways. I've lived next to water most of my life. I was born and raised in northern Norway on the Helgeland coast. It's famous for its huge archipelago, 12,000 islands along a 200 strip of coast, fjords crisscrossing the landscape, villages and cities scattered about, mountains rising 1,000 meters up from the Atlantic. Growing up on these islands, the sea was everywhere. On the weekends, my parents would take us for picnics on the shore. Stone skipping and fishing were the first sports I got into, venturing out in little boats with my friends. Living on islands, ferry rides were a daily experience. My parents would take the ferry to get to work. To get to our grandparents, we had to take 2 ferries. And all these ferries must have had a strong impact on me because when I, at 7 years old, entered into a Lego building competition, my original entry was a Lego ferry. To this day, many areas still rely on ferries. Ro-ro ferries carry passengers and cars across fjords and rivers, and speed ferries connect cities to their suburbs and each other. In cities, commuter and tourist vessels provide mobility. But the 20th century really was the century of the car, the automobile. Manufacturing, design, and technology advances reduced cost and improved quality so much, road vehicles became the go-to option wherever possible. Cars and buses became backbones of people transport, and cars and trucks took care of goods. And new roads and new asphalt became signs of progress. In parallel, cities turned away from the waterfront. Industrial harbors and roads took over, and the waterfront became unsafe and unattractive for people to be. This shows the Oslo waterfront in the 90s. There's a 12-lane highway blocking access to the water along with an industrial harbor. The river flowing out in this bay was highly polluted. In Düsseldorf, Germany, this road blocked off access to the Rhine, which, come to think of it, was just as fine because the river was highly polluted and no safe to be. Here's Chicago, 18 lanes of road blocking access to the water. Fortunately, we're getting better. Urban waterfronts are being cleaned up and redeveloped across the world. This is the same Düsseldorf location now. That massive traffic machine in Oslo is gone. We have relegated cars to a tunnel under the city and opened up space for redevelopment. And we cleaned up the river and sewage systems. People are now going for swims in waters that just a few years ago were not safe. New apartments, restaurants, and museums line the waterfront, drawing millions of visitors a year. These waterfront properties are premium real estate. This is also true here in Arendal. The site we are at now, the Business Shipyard, opened in the 1750s, will soon be home to thousands of people. And the picture is the same around the world. If you live in a city with waterfront, that's where the most attractive new properties are. So the next step is to match this rediscovery of the urban waterfront with modern waterborne mobility services. Now, to reduce congestion and improve livelihoods, cities are making it easier to get around town without a car. One cornerstone is creating a more walkable and bikeable city, removing parking spaces to create more spacious sidewalks and dedicated bike paths, e-bikes and cargo bikes. Another cornerstone is to make public transit more accessible and attractive, and it's working. In Oslo, ridership is now higher than it was before the pandemic. In Germany, they have recently implemented the Germany ticket, which means everyone gets free access to public transit in any city in Germany, and it's increased demand by 25% in just a few months. In Paris, trains are full even outside rush hour. So now the challenge is, how do we create more public transit faster? Sometimes we can just add another bus or train, but too often we need to build new bus lanes, lay new tracks, dig new tunnels. And building anything on land in a city takes a lot of time and money. In Oslo, building an 8-kilometer extension on the subway costs 3 billion euros and takes 10 years. So we need to speed up. Could ferries help? Infrastructure is one way in which ferries are great, because they don't need anything, apart from a few landings. There's no need to maintain rail tracks or lay asphalt, no tunnels to dig or bridges to build, no particulate emissions from road wear. And ferries are also very popular where they operate. Take Fredrikstad. There's 6 ferries transporting 1.5 million people a year. It's pretty impressive for a city with just 80,000 people. And these ferries are also TripAdvisor's highest recommendation for visitors. And there's plenty of space for more, even in a busy ferry port like Istanbul. But the ferry market is still small. In Oslo, the fjord city, with an expansive waterfront, ferries count only for 2.5% of public transit. In Norway at large, ferries carry only 1% of public transit jobs. So why don't ferries make a bigger contribution? The reason is how we design, build, and operate ferries. So where the 20th century brought an automotive industry revolution, ferries are largely the same as 100 years ago. Here in Arendal, 2 currently operating ferries were built in the 1930s and the 1970s with designs from the 1800s. Why? For one, people are sentimental about the historic look of ferries. They're icons of the city. And as road vehicles largely took over the transportation jobs, innovation stagnated in the ferry industry. The problem is there are too many cities that have high potential that are underserved or not served at all. So here's my 3-point plan for making waterborne mobility available to all. We need to build better ferries at scale. We need to make ferries more accessible, and we need to operate ferries more efficiently. To build better ferries, we need to get rid of their emissions. Burning diesel causes emissions and noise, which are not only environmental challenges and problems, but also reduces the attractiveness of these vessels. Noisy and smelly diesel engines waking you up in the morning is just not acceptable. Fortunately, electrification is making inroads in the maritime industry. Norway already has more than 100 electric ferries. And electric ferries are popping up in Europe, in Asia, in the Middle East, and Americas as well. And when we power these electric vessels with renewable energy, our emissions are almost to zero. And maintenance energy costs are also much lower. And it also means building lighter ferries, which not only require fewer materials, but also consume much less energy. Lower energy consumption means smaller batteries, lower weight, which in turn further reduces energy consumption. It's a virtuous cycle. And building better also means building at lower cost, higher quality, larger scale. Instead of building custom ferries for specific purposes, we should procure ferries like we procure buses, trucks, and cars, as standard off-the-shelf products. Standardizing designs and manufacturing at scale enables ferries to compete better with road vehicles. So over the past 5 years, we've been working on our answer to this challenge. And this is the new Hike Smart City Shuttle, which we launched here in Arendal this summer. We wanted to create an iconic design that looks great and enhances the experience of the landscape and the urbanscape. It's all electric, weighs just 12 tons, which is less than half traditional ferries, and is designed for mass production. This first one is going into commercial operation in Fredrikstad this fall, and we're busy ramping up manufacturing. Now, the second task is to make ferries more accessible, make it super easy to board with wheelchairs, strollers, bicycles, even cargo bikes. More accessible by running to more places so you get closer to your destination. Oslo, with its 10-kilometer of inner-city waterfront, has only a single ferry stop. An important reason is that the ferries currently in use are very large, and it's just more complicated to build landings for such huge vessels. If we build lighter and more modularly, we make it much easier to start operations in new places. This picture from Fredrikstad, we needed zero planning to start the demo operations. We could just use an existing pontoon. This picture is from Arendal, from Vindholmen, where we this summer created a new ferry service with only a few days of preparation. With electric ferries, we also need to think about charging. If we can charge in more locations, we can use smaller batteries, which reduce weight, cost, and resource use, and energy use. So remember that virtuous cycle, right? However, charging usually means installing bulky infrastructure on the waterfront, where you don't really want it. And we must also secure sufficient power, which can be cumbersome on the waterfront. So to overcome these challenges, we created a modular pontoon solution with the charging electronics and energy storage invisibly integrated into the pontoons. That also enables automatic docking and charging. It can be adapted to various locations. Which brings me to the third step of my three-point plan. We need to get smarter about how we operate ferries. For one, we can automate repetitive tasks. Instead of having staff moor the vessels and placing a bridge over to land, we can dock and charge automatically. We can also automate navigation tasks, reducing staff needs per vessel. Finding enough staff is a big challenge for any public transit, but even more so for ferries, where requirements are just tighter. And it's quite common for ferry services to be interrupted due to staff shortages today. Autonomous navigation also comes with increased situational awareness, which improves safety. Like modern cars, advanced sensors allow our shuttles to automatically identify risks and obstacles in their environment that ensures safe and accident-free operations. We also need to create more attractive services, running with higher frequency to more places. This is one of the ferry servicing Norway's busiest passenger ferry connection in Oslo. And this is its demand curve. It's a commuter passenger vessel that basically has a huge demand in the rush hours and not much demand outside rush hour. So these vessels are only used 10% of the time. 10% of the capacity is in use. And there's no practical way of using such large vessels that are single-purpose built for different things. So the question is, what can we do with this opportunity space? If we operate more fleets of more vessels with smaller vessels, we can change what they do during the day. We can optimize services for different needs. We can shift between passenger transport, commuter transport. We know that passengers or tourists and commuters have different needs. Smarter operation also about increasing revenues. Public transit agencies should definitely expand financing for ferry services, but we should also ask other stakeholders that benefit from these services to pay up. Property developers should contribute to ferry services because they increase the value of these properties. Cities can do like Fredrikstad and use parking revenues to pay for ferry services. Employers should stand out by offering water shuttle services to employees. So those are the three cornerstones of expanding waterborne mobility. Build better ferries at scale, make ferries more accessible, operate ferries more efficiently. Norwegians have become infamous for our timidness. As Julien Borel described in his book, The Social Guidebook to Norway, this means the bus is full. But after the pandemic, we're going from thinking about transportation as a physical movement of people and goods from one place to another, to thinking about it more as core to the experience of living in city. It's not just how much does it cost per journey, but how much value is it creating? We know people make richer connections on the water. They speak more with each other. Could the waterborne mobility revolution not only mean we create new physical connections faster, could we also foster richer connections between people? And richer connections with the environment? And richer connections with the cities? As we have seen, urban waterways give us a unique opportunity to create more enjoyable and sustainable cities. We're ready, let's do it.